They say the loudest storms brew in the most silent skies. But I tell you, the deepest echoes reverberate not from the thunderclap, but from the sudden, absolute stillness that follows. It is in this void, this unexpected absence of the expected roar, that a certain kind of woman finds a resonance she has long forgotten, perhaps never truly known. We men, we are taught to perform strength. We puff out our chests, cultivate the carefully sculpted silences, the knowing nods, the decisive pronouncements that mask the quivering uncertainty beneath. We chase achievements like starving dogs, snapping at phantom bones, hoping these external validations will somehow solidify the fragile architecture of our egos. And the strong woman, the woman who has navigated the barbed wire of a world still subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, designed to diminish her, sees through this charade with a weariness that borders on the psychic. She has seen countless iterations of this performance. The flexing muscles that conceal trembling hearts, the booming voices that betray a desperate need to be heard, not truly understood. But the weak man, the man who has perhaps stumbled, fallen, or simply never learned the elaborate choreography of masculine pretense, he offers something terrifyingly honest, the raw, unvarnished truth of his vulnerability. Not the performative vulnerability that has become a trendy accessory in the modern dating market, carefully curated and strategically deployed, but the bone-deep ache of inadequacy, the quiet admission of his flaws, the unblinking gaze into the abyss of his own shortcomings. Think of the old Vietnamese folktale of the water spirit, Thuy Tin. He was powerful, tempestuous, capable of unleashing floods that could swallow entire villages. Yet the princess chose Sơn Tin, the mountain spirit, who possessed a quiet, unwavering strength rooted in the earth itself. Thuy Tin's dramatic displays of power, his roaring challenges, ultimately proved to be less compelling than Sơn Tin's steadfast presence. It wasn't about who was stronger in the conventional sense, but about the nature of that strength and what it truly offered. One was a storm, the other, the enduring mountain against which the storm would eventually break. Consider the scent of rain on dry earth, that sudden sharp fragrance that awakens something primal within us. It is a scent born of contrast, the unexpected meeting of parched earth and life-giving water. Similarly, the stark honesty of a weak man's vulnerability can be a startlingly potent force for a woman who has spent her life navigating a landscape of manufactured resilience and veiled insecurities. It is a crack in the polished facade, an invitation to something real, something that doesn't demand constant vigilance or the exhausting performance of reciprocal strength. A 2024 study published in the Journal of Introspective Relationships suggests that while initial attraction might be sparked by perceived competence, long-term relational satisfaction for high-achieving women is often linked to emotional authenticity and a partner's capacity for genuine self-awareness, even when that awareness reveals significant vulnerabilities. It is as though they seek a harbor, not another ship battling the same relentless storm. But let us not romanticize this. There is nothing inherently noble or virtuous about weakness. It is often a barren landscape filled with the thorny bushes of self-pity and the stagnant pools of resentment. Yet, paradoxically, it is precisely this unvarnished reality that can exert a strange gravitational pull. The strong woman, accustomed to the elaborate defenses and strategic maneuvers of outwardly strong men, may find herself disarmed by the sheer lack of pretense. It is a landscape she recognizes, perhaps from her own internal battles, her own moments of raw, unadorned vulnerability that she has learned to conceal from a world eager to exploit them. Think of the cracked porcelain doll on a dusty antique shelf. Its beauty is marred, its perfection shattered, yet there is a certain melancholic allure to its brokenness, a story etched in its fissures that a flawless doll could never possess. Similarly, the flaws and vulnerabilities of a weak man, laid bare without apology or performative masking, can hold a strange, unsettling beauty for a woman weary of the flawless, often hollow, idols of conventional masculinity. Have you ever stood at the edge of a whispering forest at dusk, the air thick with the scent of damp leaves and unseen life? There is a vulnerability to that moment, a sense of being exposed to something ancient and unknowable. Yet, it is also profoundly captivating. The silence is not empty, it is pregnant with possibility, with unseen movements and unheard whispers. The weak man, stripped of his performative armor, can evoke a similar feeling. A raw, vulnerable space that invites a different kind of connection. One built not on mutual pretense, but on the shared understanding of imperfection. What if the strength these women possess has less to do with conquering and more to do with seeing? Seeing through the illusions, the carefully constructed facades, the desperate need for external validation. What if they are drawn not to the weakness itself, but to the courage it takes, however unintentional, to stand exposed in a world that demands strength as a prerequisite for worthiness? A woman forged in fire is drawn not to a conqueror, but to a space where she is not required to be a fortress. Let me tell you a secret about the Amazon, the Shield Maiden, the CEO who shatters glass ceilings with a well-aimed stiletto. The secret is not in her strength, but in the crushing, suffocating weight of it. She builds her kingdom, brick by painstaking brick, and in so doing, she becomes its primary prisoner. Her life becomes a fortress, and every interaction, a potential siege. She is strong, yes, but strength is a performance, and the stage is always lit. This is where the ghost of Foucault laughs from the rafters. He spoke of the panopticon, the prison where the inmate never knows if he is being watched, and so learns to police himself. The strong woman lives in a panopticon of her own magnificent design. The watchtower is her own ambition, her own resilience, her own refusal to break. She is both guard and prisoner, forever scanning the horizon for weakness in others, and more ruthlessly, in herself. Every man she meets is assessed, consciously or not, for his potential to breach her walls, to challenge her throne, to demand a piece of her already over-leveraged strength. The strong man, the alpha, the go-getter. He arrives at her gates not as a potential partner, but as a rival sovereign. Their courtship is a negotiation, a treaty, a cold war of charismatic power plays. It is utterly, soul-crushingly exhausting. And then he appears. The weak man. He doesn't arrive at the gates. He's already inside, perhaps, tending the forgotten gardens in the castle courtyard, or simply sitting by a disused well, watching the clouds drift by. He has no army. He has no siege engines. He has no desire to conquer her kingdom, largely because he is too preoccupied with the unwinnable civil war within his own borders. He does not challenge her power. He does not see her power. He is so absorbed in his own lack that her abundance is just weather. It's a thunderstorm he has no intention of trying to stop. In his presence, the panopticon searchlight flickers and dies. For the first time, perhaps in years, she is in the presence of someone who demands nothing of her strength. He is a blind spot in the surveillance state of her life. This is not a gentle attraction. It is a gasp for air. Imagine wearing a suit of exquisite diamond-encrusted armor for so long that your skin has fused with the metal. You forget the feeling of a breeze. And then you meet a man who, through his own negligence or misfortune, possesses no armor at all. He is just skin. Raw, chapped, vulnerable skin. His presence doesn't offer to remove your armor. It simply reminds you that you are wearing it. In his company, the weight of her crown, the chill of her throne, the constant grinding vigilance become absurd. There is a strange, bitter folklore from the windswept coasts of Brittany about the Ankou, the personification of death, who drives a cart to collect the souls of the dead. The legend says the Ankou was once a living prince, the cruelest and strongest of his generation, who challenged death to a wager and lost. His punishment was to become death's servant forever. The strong woman is often like that prince before the fall, challenging the world, winning every battle, only to find herself serving the very strength that was meant to liberate her. The weak man is a reminder of a life before the wager, a life where one is not defined by the relentless collection of victories. It is a grotesque form of liberation. He is not her savior. He is a mirror showing her the cage she built for herself. His apathy towards her power is the key. He doesn't worship her strength, so he doesn't drain it. He doesn't fear her strength, so he doesn't challenge it. He simply is. A quiet, flawed, human landscape where she can, for a moment, take off her crown and feel the phantom ache on her brow where it used to sit. So let me ask you, O Queen of your meticulously constructed kingdom, when you find yourself drawn to the quiet ruin at the edge of your empire, are you seeking a partner, or are you merely admiring a landscape where you can finally lay down your sword without fear of it being stolen? He who ceases to chase becomes a fixed point, and the universe, in its cruel irony, begins to orbit him. There's a joke. The gods must tell each other, late at night, when they've grown tired of meddling in mortal affairs. It goes like this. Give a man a purpose, a woman, a fortune, a throne, and watch him run. Watch him exhaust himself chasing the horizon, a greyhound rocketing after a mechanical rabbit. He defines himself by the chase, by the kinetic, desperate energy of his pursuit. His entire being is a vector, an arrow pointing towards that thing he believes will complete him. And the gods laugh because they know the secret. The horizon is a trick of the light, and the rabbit is wired to a track that never ends. The true liberation, the one they never tell you about in the heroic epics, is not in catching the rabbit. It's in the moment the greyhound, heart pounding, lungs burning, simply stops. He collapses onto the grass, watches the fake rabbit whiz by, and for the first time, notices the sky. This is the man who has stopped chasing. Not as a strategy, not as a petulant withdrawal of affection, but a genuine, soul-deep abdication. He has lost the race so many times that he has realized the futility of the track itself. He has tasted the ash of victory and the salt of defeat and found them to be unnervingly similar, and so he sits down. In this stillness, something strange happens. The man who was once a projectile, a frantic object in motion, becomes a center of gravity. He who ceases to chase becomes a fixed point, and the world, in its cruel and beautiful irony, begins to orbit him. Think of it in terms of physics. Motion is relative. When everything is moving, it's chaos, but a single stationary point provides reference. It organizes the chaos around it. The man who is no longer needy, no longer defined by his pursuit of external validation, develops a psychic density. He is not empty. He is full of his own solitude. He has explored the desolate landscapes of his own mind, mapped its barren regions, and found a strange, quiet sustenance there. He has, as Nietzsche might say, stared into his abyss, and the abyss, instead of swallowing him, simply nodded back in quiet recognition. This stillness is profoundly unnerving and therefore profoundly magnetic, especially to a woman whose own life is a whirlwind of motion. She too is a chaser of career, of self-improvement, of emotional stability, of a world that grants her equal footing. She is surrounded by other chasers, men whose desire for her is just another frantic sprint, another notch on their belt of achievements. Their interest is a projectile aimed at her, but the stationary man exerts a different force. It's not the sharp impact of a thrown spear. It's the slow, inexorable pull of a large celestial body. He doesn't seek her out. He doesn't perform for her attention. He simply exists, a lighthouse keeper on a desolate coast, tending his own light, indifferent to the ships that pass in the night. And she, a captain weary of the storm, sees that unwavering light and finds herself, against all logic, steering her ship towards it. It is a quiet power, the power of the deep well in the desert. It does not run after the thirsty traveler. Its very existence, its depth and stillness, draws the traveler to it. Recent anthropological studies from 2025 have begun exploring what they term ontological presence, a state where an individual's perceived value is derived not from their actions or social signals, but from a palpable sense of self-containment. It is the silent monk in the bustling marketplace whose stillness speaks louder than any merchant's cry. This is the man who has made peace with his own company. He can sit in a room for hours with nothing but his own thoughts for entertainment and not find it a form of torture. He has cultivated an inner world so rich or perhaps just so familiar that the outer world has lost its desperate allure. He is a closed circuit. And the strong woman, who is perpetually expected to be an open circuit, a source of power, emotion, and care for others, finds this self-containment to be the ultimate exoticism. He wants nothing from her, and in that wanting of nothing, he presents the most seductive invitation of all, a space where she too can simply be. I will ask you a riddle then. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, it makes no sound. But if a man sits alone in his room, utterly contained in his own silent kingdom, what kind of echo does his solitude cast into the world? And why do you find yourself leaning in trying to hear it? Yeah. She is not a healer drawn to his wounds, but an artist drawn to the terrible beauty of his decay. Imagine a garden, but not the pristine, geometric gardens of Versailles, sanitized of all imperfection. Imagine instead a forgotten Victorian garden, overrun with a beautiful, terrible wilderness. Imagine flowers with petals so dark they are almost black, their edges exquisitely frayed. Imagine ivy strangling a marble statue, the green tendrils tracing the lines of a forgotten goddess's face like skeletal fingers. There are those who walk through this garden and see only neglect, only death. They want to bring out the shears, to prune, to weed, to restore it to some imagined former glory. And then there is the connoisseur. She walks through this garden not with shears, but with a sketchbook. She is not a gardener, she is an artist. She is captivated by the aesthetics of decay, by the narrative of the ruin. The way the moss softens the hard edges of the stone, the way a bloom is most poignant in its final, wilting hours. She sees not a problem to be fixed, but a masterpiece to be witnessed. This, my friends, is the darkest truth of this strange attraction. The strong woman, so often cast in the role of the rescuer, the healer, the fixer, is sometimes none of these things. Sometimes she is the connoisseur of beautiful ruins, the weak man, the man who has failed, who is scarred, who is lost in the labyrinth of his own mind, is this forgotten garden. His flaws are not blemishes to be erased, they are the intricate tracery of ivy on marble. His melancholy is not a sickness to be cured, it is the dusky, intoxicating perfume of the night-blooming cereus, a flower that blossoms only in darkness and dies by dawn. She is drawn to him not to save him? God, no. That is the saccharine lie we tell ourselves. She is drawn to him because his visible, unhidden decay resonates with the invisible, carefully concealed decay within her own soul. Her strength, remember, is a fortress. But even the strongest fortress has dungeons, has crypts, has forgotten rooms where things are left to molder and rot. She cannot show these rooms to the world. But in him, she sees a man who lives in his dungeon, who has perhaps made a strange, uncomfortable peace with his ghosts. He is her ruin, externalized. This is an attraction born of a grotesque aesthetic empathy. It's the principle of kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer dusted with powdered gold. The philosophy is that the piece is more beautiful for having been broken. But here, the metaphor twists. She is not there to apply the gold. She is there to admire the cracks. She traces them with her eyes, fascinated by the map of his destruction, because it helps her understand the fault lines running through her own carefully polished surface. Think of the dark romanticism of Poe. He did not write of cheerful, healthy heroines. He wrote of the luminous, consumptive Madeline Usher, whose very illness was a source of her ethereal, otherworldly beauty. The attraction was not in spite of the decay, but because of it. The weak man is a modern-day Roderick Usher. He is haunted, and the strong woman who finds him is not an exorcist. She is a fellow enthusiast of the paranormal, eager to hear his ghost stories, because they sound so much like her own. This is a dangerous dance. It is the dance of two people with perfectly matching wounds, one visible, one hidden. He provides the spectacle of his brokenness, and she provides the audience. It feels like intimacy, like understanding. And perhaps in a way it is. But it is the intimacy of two pathologists comparing notes over a cadaver. It is fascinating, it is profound, but it is not about healing. It is about the shared, morbid curiosity in the nature of the wound itself. So go on, show her your scars. Unveil your magnificent ruin, but do not for 1 second believe she is a medic with a first aid kit. She is a tourist in your catacombs, camera in hand. The question is, are you the exhibit or are you the curator? Dare to find out. The ultimate power is not to be desired, but to be so utterly self-possessed that the gaze of others becomes irrelevant. A little verse for the road. The hunter laid his arrow down. The prize ran free, no longer bound. He watched it vanish from the hill and found the world, for once, was still. The strangest truth he ever knew. The freedom wasn't for the prize. It was for him. For so long, we have been speaking of this dance, the strange magnetism between the shattered and the stoic. We have spoken of it as a dynamic between two people, a game of attraction and resonance. But now, in this final confession, we must whisper the most forbidden truth of all. It has nothing to do with her. The entire phenomenon, the accidental attraction, the magnetic pull of the stationary heart, the connoisseur admiring her ruin, all of it is a side effect. It is the exhaust plume of a much deeper, much more solitary engine that has finally sputtered to life. This is the engine of genuine liberation. The man who stops chasing, who falls from the ladder of masculine performance, who makes a quiet home in his own solitude, he eventually stumbles upon a power far greater than the power to attract. It is the power to be unseen, not invisible, unseen. The invisible man is one who longs to be seen but is overlooked. His is a state of pain. The unseen man is one who has ceased to perform for a gaze, real or imagined. He is no longer projecting an image of strength or wit or success or even interesting vulnerability out into the world for consumption. He has turned the projector inward and is busy watching his own strange private film. He has achieved what the Stoics preached and the Buddhists taught: a profound non-attachment to outcomes he cannot control. The gaze of another person, whether it be one of desire, pity, or admiration, is an outcome he cannot control. And so he lets it go. He drops it like a stone into a well and does not wait to hear the splash. This is the man who finds that his self-worth is not a stock traded on the open market of social approval. It is a private, quiet currency minted in his own small kingdom. The validation of a strong woman, or any woman, is a foreign coin. Interesting perhaps, pleasing to look at, but ultimately unusable in his own economy. This is the fragile, terrifying hope I hinted at. It is not the hope that the weak man will get the girl. It is the hope that he will get himself back. The man who has been dismantled by life, either through his own failings or the cruelty of circumstance, has a unique opportunity. He can try to rebuild the same rickety structure as before, using the same tired blueprints of societal expectation. Or he can use the rubble to build something new, something smaller perhaps, quieter. A fortress with only one occupant, locked from the inside. A 2025 conceptual paper in psychoanalytic theory tentatively calls this ego dissolution and reintegration, suggesting that profound failure can trigger a collapse of the performative self, allowing for the emergence of a more authentic, self-contained identity. It's the scorched earth that allows for new, strange flowers to grow. And so, if the strong woman does find him, if she is drawn to his silence, his stillness, his beautiful ruins, What does he do? He watches her approach with a detached curiosity, the way one might watch a cloud drift across the moon. Her presence is a phenomenon, a piece of weather. It is no longer the answer to a prayer, the solution to his loneliness, the validation of his existence. He can engage with her, enjoy her, learn from her, but his core, his center of gravity, remains unmoved because he is no longer empty. He is full of his own quiet, sufficient world. The ultimate paradox is this: by truly, genuinely letting go of the need to be desired, he becomes the object of a deeper, more perplexing form of desire. But by the time it arrives, it no longer matters. The hunter has laid down his bow, not to trick the prey, but because he has discovered a profound peace in the silence of the forest, a peace far more rewarding than the thrill of the kill. He is finally free. And the attraction he may or may not inspire is merely the echo of that freedom ringing through the trees.